All right, today we're diving into a really critical topic, the different ways gender inequality shows up in our education systems. We're going to look at how it affects students, from what happens inside the classroom all the way to their future careers. And just so you know where this is all coming from, our guide for this explainer is the academic work of Dr. Narayan Prasad Behera. So we're really digging into the research here to understand this global issue. So let's get on the same page. What do we actually mean by gender inequality in education? Well, at its heart, it's any time a student's gender leads to them having different opportunities, different treatment, or different outcomes. And this can touch everything, from who gets to go to school in the first place to the resources they get and even what they end up achieving. Here's our game plan for today. First, we'll step inside the classroom to look at bias. Then we'll tackle the serious issue of safety. After that, we'll look at the barriers that keep kids from even getting to school, understand the long-term ripple effect of all this, and then wrap up with the big takeaway. Okay, first up, bias in the classroom. This is where those subtle and sometimes, not so subtle stereotypes really start to mold a student's whole educational path. One of the first places you'll see this bias is in the actual materials students learn from. I'm talking about textbooks, lesson plans. They can often end up reinforcing these really traditional and, frankly, limiting ideas about what boys and girls are supposed to do. I mean, think about it. When a kid sees an image like this over and over again, dad goes to the office, mom stays home in the kitchen, it sends this powerful unspoken message. It starts to define who's expected to be a leader, who's expected to earn the money, and who's supposed to be the caregiver. And this bias doesn't stop with textbooks. It bleeds right into the subjects students choose. Now, it's usually not some official rule, but there's this strong undercurrent of suggestion from teachers, from counselors, that can push students towards subjects that are seen as more appropriate for their gender. And what you end up with is this really clear divide. Boys often get nudged towards STEM fields, science, math, engineering, which usually lead to more technical and, let's be honest, higher-paying jobs. Girls, on the other hand, are frequently guided into the arts, humanities, or caregiving fields. This little nudge early on can literally set students on completely different financial tracks for the rest of their lives. So beyond the books and the subjects, this bias also shows up in the day-to-day interactions between teachers and students. And a lot of the time, it's completely unconscious. So what does this actually look like? Well, maybe a teacher consistently calls on the boys to solve the tough math problems, just assuming they'll be better at it. Or maybe boys get more airtime in class discussions. They might get picked for leadership roles more often, while their assertive behavior gets called leadership, but when a girl does the same thing, she's called bossy. It's all these tiny, daily moments that really add up and can chip away at a student's confidence. Okay, so now we have to shift gears and talk about something much heavier. For some students, the inequality isn't just about a missed opportunity. It's about the presence of real, actual danger, which can turn a school from a place of learning into a place of fear. According to the research, sexual abuse is a really severe form of gender inequality. And it often grows out of a power imbalance, right? Where teachers, staff, or even older students take advantage of their position over younger, more vulnerable students. Dr. Behera's work is very clear about what this includes. We're talking about everything from verbal harassment and sexual comments to physical acts like inappropriate touching. It can even be a teacher using their power to demand favors for better grades or severe harassment coming from other students. And the fallout from this kind of abuse? It's just devastating. It causes deep emotional trauma, makes students terrified to even go to school, and no surprise, their grades suffer. For a lot of students, especially girls, it's the reason they leave school and never come back. So now, let's zoom out a bit, because for millions of kids around the world, the problem isn't just what happens in the classroom. It's about the walls that stop them from even walking through the school doors. In many parts of the world, there's a fundamental gap in who even gets to go to school. Because of social norms or economic hardship, families often have to make a choice, and a boy's education is seen as more important than a girl's. So why does this happen? Well, families might see boys as the future breadwinners, so their education seems like a better investment. At the same time, girls are often expected to stay home to help with chores or care for siblings. Or they're married off at a young age, and that almost always means the end of their education. But hey, even when girls are allowed to go to school, the school building itself can be a huge barrier. This is all about infrastructure, or more accurately, the lack of it. When you look at the facilities, the problem becomes crystal clear. The lack of safe, private, separate toilets is a massive issue, especially for teenage girls. Add to that poor resources for menstrual hygiene, and you have girls missing school for days every single month, or just dropping out for good. Unsafe buildings, poor lighting, unequal sports facilities, it all sends a very loud message. Their needs just aren't a priority. So, we've seen what's happening in and around schools. But these problems don't just stay within the schoolyard. No way. They create this massive ripple effect that shapes a person's whole life and society as a whole. It's like a line of dominoes, right? It starts with inequality in school. That leads to lower confidence and more kids dropping out, which, of course, leads to fewer career opportunities. And that creates wider social and economic inequality, which ultimately holds back an entire country's progress because it's failing to tap into the potential of half its people. So after looking at all these different forms of inequality, what's the big takeaway from Dr. Behar's work? What's the path forward here? Well, there's no single magic bullet. The solution has a few key parts. It means we need to put gender-sensitive policies in place for everything, from how we write textbooks to how we build schools. It means we have to actively work to make sure every single student has a real, equal shot at success. And crucially, it means we need awareness programs, not just for teachers, but for whole communities, to start challenging those deep-rooted stereotypes that are fueling the problem in the first place. And that brings us to the final thought. The research lays out the problem and the high-level solutions pretty clearly, but it leaves us with a really important question to think about in our own lives, in our own communities, and in our own schools. What part can we play in making our learning spaces truly equal for everyone?